Hello and welcome to this BBC News 100 Days Facebook Live here in Philadelphia in the great state of Pennsylvania. I'm Laura Trevelyan. Please send me your questions on anything you want to know about President Trump and 100 days. Shortly I'll have a guest and between us we'll try and answer anything you might want to know. But just have a look at this wonderful city, Philadelphia, of course, birthplace of the American Declaration of Independence and the Constitutional Convention. A city with a fine history in a state which helped elect Donald Trump to the White House. Donald Trump won Pennsylvania against all the odds. All the polls suggested that Hillary Clinton would win here, anything up to 9%, some of the polls I was reading just the day of the election. But she lost this state to Donald Trump by less than 1%. And it helped put him in the White House and win the Electoral College for him. But I should say today, it's a beautiful day here. But Philadelphia is consumed not only with the fact that it's nearly 100 days of Donald Trump and he's going to come to the great state of Pennsylvania on Saturday for a rally, but also, if you look up there, you'll see that sign which says draft on it, NFL draft. That's the American Football League, and what's happening here tonight is the draft, which is when the teams get to pick the top college football players. So that's a very exciting moment also here in Philadelphia, something that everyone is talking about. But let's go back to our topic, which is Donald Trump, nearly 100 days. We're on day 98. He wants to mark that victory with some achievements. To talk through what he has done, joining me now is someone very important in the victory of Donald Trump. This is Carter Palmer. Carter, thanks for joining us here.
Thank you.
On this BBC News Facebook Live. Now, Carter, you voted for President Obama in 2012, but in 2016, you were one of those people in this state that switched to Donald Trump. Tell me, how do you feel he's doing nearly 100 days in?
Well, it would be hard to say that I am impressed. I'm very satisfied, however, with what's done because the choice that I made as a former Democratic voter, as someone whose family, whose friends, who almost everyone around me is of a very liberal cast, and I also consider myself to have many left-leaning views, although not all of them. The reason, well, I'm satisfied with Trump in part because he has he's accomplished a great many foreign policy concerns.
Well, I know you
of mine,
wanted to see America step back from foreign interventions. I mean, we can argue about that, but economically, what do you feel about how he's doing? I know that you're looking for work currently, you're studying. Do you feel your prospects are improving under President Trump?
Well, you know that as far as the first 100 days go, the to-do list is still much longer than the have-done list. And this recent tax reform sort of prelude that Trump's released is just the first step.
But what do you think of that? He's talking about cutting corporate tax to 15% and individual tax rates will go down
you know, he's a Republican. We have those in this country, and that wasn't something that I was not expecting to see when I made my vote. And this tax reorganization is part of a trend. Another thing that I was looking to see from Trump, which is a move towards effective regulation as opposed to
So you're pleased
overwrought.
that he has signed all these executive orders rolling back regulation on business?
The simplification is an aspect that we expect to see from Republicans, and it's part of their role. And
but is it what you want to see?
It is what I want to see.
Yeah.
It's important, and the tax brackets also will affect me and will affect many people close to me. It helps young married couples and young mothers.
Yeah.
And I think that's important.
No, there is a lot going on. Thank you all for your comments. Jake Jacoby says Donald Trump is doing great if only Congress could keep up. But we'll get to that in a minute. Diane Lowe says, sadly, I think that's 100 days too many. I'm guessing, Diane, you're a Democrat. Robert Lloyd says he's doing a great job. Marvin Smith says, and this is really gets to the point of it, I think, Carter. Marvin Smith says, why is he still campaigning? Of course, Donald Trump is coming here to the state of Pennsylvania. He's going to hold a campaign rally, well, not a campaign rally, but a rally on Saturday night to thank those people who helped elect him. But do you feel, Carter, like Donald Trump is always in campaign mode?
Well, there is a situation where Trump has been working very hard and needs to continue to work very hard to bring into the fold, create allegiances within his own party and outside his own party still. This situation with the Republican establishment that tried very hard to prevent his nomination, tried very hard to prevent his campaign at all, and many still don't appreciate him. You know, the number of his unpopularity is known.
Right. Well, does it bother you, the fact that, according to polls, and I know we should take polls with something of a pinch of salt after they predicted that Hillary Clinton was going to win here in this state of Pennsylvania, but nonetheless, his approval rating solidly has been hovering around 40%, which is a historic low in the history of presidential polling. Does it bother you that so many in the country disapprove of him?
To me, that is right in the same vein as the more populist policies of Trump. That if I were to be concerned with the percentage points of the people that support him, then I would say, you know, that he ought to do more pandering. Like as far as the American people.
And he promised to govern for all Americans. Do you feel that he is? I mean, you know, a whole wide swathe of Americans with different political views here in the city of Philadelphia. Do you feel he's representing everybody?
He does govern us all, and he represents voices that were not heard, and he represents some new currents in politics that perhaps would have taken a different path under a Democratic
no, this is true. Now, just
administration.
Thank you all for your comments and questions which are coming in, and just really to sum up the divide that Carter's talking about there. Heather Storm says worst president ever, but Renette Barnard says the greatest president America ever had. But let's talk a little bit about his style, Carter. Do you like the tweeting, speaking directly to the American public, the disparaging of enemies?
It's new. It's like nothing that I've ever seen before.
Yeah.
And as a young person, I get a thrill from an attack on the established pillars of society in many ways, not in every way, of course. But this sort of change of decorum, this rejection of decorum, if you will, it's not, it doesn't offend me, and it doesn't seem inappropriate because we've never had this situation technologically. Socially.
Do you worry, though, that he often will contradict himself and retreat? I mean, all day yesterday the White House was briefing that possibly an imminent withdrawal from NAFTA was going to happen, and then this morning he tweets, you know, not withdrawing for now. So do you think that's unsettling? Or is it good to shake up the established order like this?
There are plenty of things where flip-flopping or having a new opinion is acceptable. There are some things where I find it less acceptable, but this situation where Trump has come into office and had to compromise with many different parties, many different interests, many different factions, I expect much more flip-flopping and much more...
Yes, well, we've had a bit of flip-flopping. President Trump has said now that NATO isn't obsolete. He's not labelled China a currency manipulator, but Al and Norwan, thank you, by the way, all of you for your questions, asks, why does Trump buy American, say he'd buy American, but he buys steel from Russia and Ivanka's products are made in China? Why doesn't anyone ask that? Does it bother you, the prominent role of the first family, of Ivanka Trump and her father's chief advisor, well, one of her father's advisors in the White House, and her husband, Jared Kushner, as a very important counselor to the president?
You're touching on one of the most important aspects of the first 100 days, which is that some of the most interesting stories to come out of the White House have been not about the person of Trump himself, but this palace intrigue, these advisors.
Do you approve of this? Do you think it's nepotism, having the Trump family in these powerful roles?
I would be false to say that I didn't see the possibility of this happening and allow for it when I made my vote. The strength...
Did you know you were voting for the Trump family en masse?
Well, the strength of Trump as a leader is the question here. When you hear about palace intrigue, when you hear about these factions grubbing over which one of their policies is going to be the policy, that's a sign that Trump is not the independent leader, not the strong unifier or actor that the optimistic view that I may have. My optimistic
projection. Right, so you're allowing there for a little bit of perhaps disappointment in what happens. But thank you all for all your comments. I'll just read some of them out. Nathan Roy says, everybody needs to chill out and quit with the pessimism. Luann Herbst-de-Moyer says, I doubt if anyone's opinion of him has changed much. His fan thinks he's doing a great job, and those of us who didn't support him to begin with have only had our opinions validated. But yet, Carter, you're allowing that your view of him has changed a bit, aren't you?
Not particularly, because there wasn't so much information that we could work with. So the possibility of Trump being what you'd call a stooge, a weak leader, that was there. We were prepared for myself and others who made the same shift that I did from left to right. We're prepared to see a struggle in this
Now,
in this
can
way.
I ask you, are you regretting your vote for President Trump?
I'm not regretting my vote.
Are you tempering your support for him at all?
Well, yeah, I could have been a booster for him if he were continuing on some of the paths that he promised, as opposed to now I'm only able to be a lukewarm booster for him.
A lukewarm booster. Well, but nonetheless a booster. I'm sure he'll take that. So Susan Garber says the 45th president has no clue how government works, and it shows. He's destroying the US credibility abroad. Now, there is a question about the competence of the administration, Carter. I think perhaps you would, let me know what you think. I mean, the way that they rolled out the travel ban in the first 100 days without making sure that all the ticks were in place, and the first attempt at healthcare reform, which didn't go through. Do you worry about the competence of the Trump administration?
I do worry, and especially with the focus on deregulation and smaller government, that we may see issues that come from, for example, these advisors that don't have political experience, such as Kushner and Bannon. That is potentially a problem.
Right. And what about looming over all of this, of course, as everybody knows, is the question of Russian interference in the US election. There are various inquiries, in fact, going on Capitol Hill. Carter, does it personally worry you, the fact that the US intelligence agencies concluded that the Russians intervened in our election in an attempt to help Donald Trump?
Well, it wouldn't take an intelligence agency to see that the United States takes that action in many foreign elections, takes similar actions.
Well, we're not talking about what the US does abroad.
Right,
My question is,
but
does
the
it bother
context,
you that the Russians, according to our intelligence agencies, intervened to help Donald Trump?
I'm not sure exactly how they intervened, whether that was hacking voting machines, which we were told could not be hacked.
I think we know, don't we? There was by hacking via WikiLeaks to undermine Hillary Clinton's campaign. But here's the question. Will it bother you if any of these congressional findings discover that there was collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians? That specific question.
I think that the Trump campaign talked a great deal about cooperation with Russia and talked a great deal about relationships with Russia, and I would need to know the exact nature of those relationships on a legal level.
Well,
and
I think that's what Congress is going to be telling you, Carter.
So I await the rule of experts, but
we'll see.
I have red lines. Not the president is not infallible.
Well, I think with that thought, we will leave it there. Carter Palmer, thank you so much for joining us. The Obama voter who switched to Trump and helped him win the state of Pennsylvania and get to the White House. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So that's all from us here in the great city of Philadelphia. Thank you so much for joining me, Laura Trevelyan. Thank you for all your questions on this BBC News 100 Days Facebook Live. Goodbye.
I'll play it as a